From the land of the rising sun to the land of eternal rain that is Ireland, I recently visited Japan and I brought back a whole load of different Japanese whiskies. I got so many whiskies that I ended up having to pay for an extra bag because it was all overweight, but I think it was worth it for this crazy haul of Japanese whiskies that I got. I'm Matt, I'm the whiskey nerd, and I'm going to show you all the whiskies I picked up on my Japanese holiday, and you can let me know down in the comments below which whiskies you want to see me review first. Which of these whiskies are kind of most exciting? Which of the ideas for different kind of fun videos you think would be very good? But right off the bat, I'm just going to start off with this one right here, the Nikka Rare Old Super. So myself and my wife Rose visited the Nikka Miyagikyo Distillery just off in Sendai, which is on the, I'll put a map up there. Actually, I have a map here. It's right around here, there, and we visited that distillery there. They have two distilleries. There's another one up in Sapporo, which is up at the top right there, and it's called the Yoichi Distillery. So this is one of their distilleries, and what they do is they make different kind of styles of whiskey at the different distilleries. So they both make single malt, but at the Miyagikyo they make a single grain whiskey as well. And when you do the tour, you get a sample of this one here, the Rare Old Super, which is a blended whiskey. It's a blend of their malt whiskey and of their grain whiskey, and it's really nice. It's really kind of soft and fruity and enjoyable, and kind of, it's one of those whiskeys that you drink it and you're like, wow, I could have a lot more of this if I wanted, because it's not overly demanding, but it's just got a nice bit of flavor. It's got a nice bit of like character to it. It does come in at 43% ABV, so it's not down on the floor. It has a nice bit of weight to it, but one of the things about this whiskey is it's actually one of the whiskeys you can get internationally. Now the prices internationally are going to be much higher than in Japan. I think I paid about 20 euro, maybe less. I think it was like 15, 16 euro when you do the conversion back into euro from yen for this bottle, whereas I think in bottle shops around Ireland it's about 40 euro. So it's about half the price, or less than half the price. Just a very nice little whiskey, and if you want to see this whiskey being reviewed, make sure you let me know in the comments below. While we were doing the tour, we also picked up these two whiskeys here, the Nikka Pure Malt, black and red. Now it's called a pure malt, not a single malt, because it's not a single malt, so it's not from the same distillery. This is still pure Nikka whiskey though, so they're both from, like I said, those two distilleries, the Yoichi and the Miyagikyo Distillery, with the black being a little bit more of the Yoichi whiskey and some of the Miyagikyo, and this one here being more of the Miyagikyo and some of the Yoichi. And that's a kind of important distinction, because in these two distilleries, the Yoichi, the kind of one up north, that makes whiskey, it's a bit more like scotch influence. It's got a lot more peat influence. It's got like a heavy duty smoky character to it, whereas the Miyagikyo is a bit lighter, it's a bit softer. It's almost, if you think of it like an Islay Scotch versus like a lowland Scotch. Not exactly one for one, but what they do is they make those kind of different styles of whiskey and then they blend them together to make different kind of characters, and that's what we've got here with the pure malt black and the pure malt red. Again, coming in at 43%. I'm not sure if you can still get these internationally, like they used to sell them internationally, but Japanese whiskey's gotten a bit harder to find nowadays, and so I think they're just selling it in Japan. I think it says on the box I have over there, it says I think a distillery exclusive, at least for now, so maybe they'll come back out in future, but right now I think you can only get them in Japan. Both very nice, and interesting to see how the different blending can kind of give you different whiskies with just the same kind of core spirits. But it wasn't all about blends of whiskies. I also got some of their single malts. Now I was starting to run out of space a little bit, so what I did was I bought a couple of these packs here. These are like individual 50ml bottles of the whiskies from the individual distilleries. So we've got, well, I'll get to this one in a second. We've got this one here, the Miyagikyo single malt, and this one here, the Yoichi single malt. So you can have a taste of the individual characters of the whiskey. And this one here is the Taketsuru, which is named after the founder of the distillery. And I think it's an equal parts blend. So you can see the difference with the black, you can see the difference with the red, and you can see an equal parts kind of whiskey. And you might be wondering, if I was at the Miyagikyo distillery, why didn't I buy a full-size bottle of the Miyagikyo, or the Miyagikyo single malt, which is this one over here? Well, I did and I didn't. So at the distillery you can actually taste different whiskies. You can taste some of their kind of special editions, and I picked up this one here. This is the Miyagikyo single malt Grande, which is actually an airport exclusive. I was able to taste it at the distillery, but it's an airport exclusive. So this comes in at 48% ABV, so it's a little bit higher than that 43% floor. I think these come in at 45%, sorry. So this is a little bit higher at that 48%, but also it's got a lot more sherry character. I'll show you something really cool that they do at the distillery in a second, but it's got a lot more sherry character coming through. And for me, I preferred it to the standard Miyagikyo. I thought it had a bit more flavor and a bit more character to it. But what I'll show you now are these 3 whiskeys right here. Well, it's not, well, it is 3 whiskeys, but it's the same whiskey. So this here is what they call the Key Malt. So when they make a blend like this one, it's like a blend of whiskeys that are single malt. What they do is they use different casks. So we've got this one here, which is sherry and sweet. So it's the same whiskey, but it was all aged in sherry casks. You can see that really nice dark color there. We've got this one here, which is the fruity and rich, which I think has a bit more like of that, like what's it called, the bourbon cask aging. So it has a nice rich flavor. And this one here, malty and soft. So it has less of the peated whiskey going into it, because at the Miyagikyo Distillery, they still use a little bit of peat, whereas this one is much more soft. It's less peat going into it, so it's more just the flavor of the malt. These are both bourbon, that's sherry, but more about the flavor of the malt, a little bit of peat here, and more about that fruity sherry character coming through. And more of this whiskey here went in to this blend, and I think that's why I preferred it here, because it just has a bit more of a fruity character. And an idea for a whiskey kind of a video I had was that I might take these 3 and try and blend this whiskey, make, you know, a little bit of, pour myself a glass of this and then try to create this whiskey from these 3 kind of key malts that they've made, that you can kind of do a little bit of fun, a little bit of experience, but also interesting to see the different cask types they've got at the distillery. Another thing I found that was very interesting when I was at the distillery, and I think you can get this in other shops in Japan, was their version of the Suntory Old, which is like the world whiskey. This here is the Nikka Session. So this here is a blend of Japanese and Scottish whiskey. So whereas the Suntory Old is like a blend of 5 different countries, so it's Japan, Canada, America, Scotland and Ireland, all those whiskies in one bottle. This is of the 2 kind of Japanese and Scottish whiskies, because again, Suntory is almost like an Irish whiskey distillery, if you know that, and like the Nikka distillery is a bit more Scottish. They've got a bit more peat to them, so they're leaning into different flavors there. And this here is a blend of just the Japanese and just the Scottish whiskies in this bottle. And I think a good idea would be to review this whiskey, because it is nice, it's fruity, it's light, but has that kind of backbone of like peated malts to it, but also to compare this one against the Suntory Old. I'll see if I can put a picture of that bottle here, because that's upstairs, and see which one of these kind of international whiskies I think is better. And if you're going through an airport and you see the Suntory Old and you see the Nikka kind of Session whiskey and you see them as international Japanese whiskies, if you can only get one, which one should you get? So I think that will be a kind of a fun video to try out next. But it wasn't just about the Nikka whiskies. I also picked up a couple of Suntory whiskies. I picked up this one here, and this one here. So this here is the Suntory Old whiskey, and this is the Suntory Royal whiskey. Now, these are not standard bottles, because I picked them up at the airport because I was just running completely out of space and weight in my bags, but they're both blended whiskies from Suntory, with one being like a little bit kind of like a bit of an age statement up from like their standard whiskies you can buy in the supermarkets. And this here and here, as you can tell from that very nice fancy looking cork on it, it's a step up again. So it's a bit more expensive again, but also meant to be that entry level into the nice Japanese whiskies. Not breaking the bank, but a nice kind of a superior Japanese whiskey. So these 2 are very nice. They're on the entry level. They're not going to blow your mind, but they're just very nice, well-made whiskeys. So if you want to see these, make sure you leave me a comment down below and see which one you want to see reviewed first. But I'm just going to put all these bottles up on this table here just to see how much whiskey I actually managed to buy when I was in Japan, because it's a very fun country to experience. Like if you ever have a holiday to go to Japan, definitely go try it out. And if you can go to a whiskey distillery, always fun, because you get those like distillery exclusives like these Key Malts, where you get something a bit special, a bit different, and a bit hard to find under the table when you've got so many bottles. And when you're going through the airport, you can get something like this one here that's just a bit different and a bit more special. So these are all the whiskeys that I've got from Japan. Like I said, if you want to see any of these reviewed first, let me know down below. I'm also going to come up with cocktails that I think will pair with the different flavors in each of these different whiskeys. So I'm going to be experimenting with those in the next few days. But let me know what you want to see first and I'll get reviewing that one. As for me, like I said, I'm Matt, I'm the Whiskey Nerd. If you want to see more videos like this and you want to see the reviews of these whiskeys, make sure you scroll down, hit that thumbs up button, hit that subscribe button. And right now, I think I'm going to pour myself a little bit of the Miyagikyo Grande. So I will see you next time. Sláinte.